welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that is perfectly balanced as all things should be. I'm your host, Max Mosier, here again to discuss She-Hulk Episode 2 with you from the MCU. I am joined with two other Infinity Bros today. On my screen to the left, it is Infinity Bro Mark. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Glad to give the Infinity Bros universe another round of She-Hulk reviewing.
Very good. And on the right side of my screen, it's Infinity Bro Isaac. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that both Max and I are just sitting in anticipation of what Mark is going to say in his intro. I feel like we're just like...
I always have a smile, but it's also a fearful smile.
it's oh no type of smile.
Oh my, please don't. Mark, don't do this. You said earlier, if you'd like to hear more, we do 30 minutes before on a Patreon podcast. You can see the link in our show notes to see that. We talked about during that time that Mark has not said anything that's cancelable. I always hold my breath, though.
Because you said cancelable stuff.
I'm sure I have, but I also know that I would edit anything that I feel would be cancelable out for you. I wouldn't let it get out there.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that. Like, as I said, I think Facebook-wise, I think I'm pretty good. But I think, like, Twitter, like, I just wonder what I did as, like when I went to the tech school and played football there, what could have been said on there. But for the most part, I feel like I was mostly PC, or at least PC for the time.
Also, too, if you want to hear us talk about some rumors that are going around about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, talk about the Spider-Woman movie with Olivia Wilde, you can check that out on the Patreon as well. Before we dive into our show today, we have... So here's a question for you guys. If somebody redoes their review, so they did a review, but they redo it on iTunes, do we read it?
Like they went in and edited their review to write more or less stuff?
Correct.
Or they did another review?
The review number didn't change. We've gotten more reviews, but this review was already given to us by somebody, so they edited their review.
Well, what did they change?
It's a completely different message. I'm saying, do we read that message?
Yeah, I think we have to.
We're at a crossroads as a podcast.
If it's a 5-star, then we read it.
So if it's like a 3-star, do we just publicly humiliate them? What do we do?
Yes, absolutely.
Did it go from a 5 to a 3-star?
It was a 5. It stayed at a 5.
Oh, okay, good.
All right.
Okay, here we go. I'll read it. Here we go. You can leave us a review on iTunes and Spotify. You can't leave a review on Spotify. You can leave us a 5-star, and apparently we've been getting more 5 stars on Spotify. We're like 17 on Spotify. So thank you for whoever's doing it.
Sweet. Cool.
This comes from Leathernator. He or she says, never a dull moment. The bros do a fantastic job expressing new ideas, theories, and insights to current and past / future events in pop culture. The chemistry between the bros is what keeps people like me interested. Highly recommended to anyone. And highly recommend anyone take a look. Also, check out their Patreon. They have exclusive content that's gold. They let Infinity Bro Mark loose. It's a great time.
He loves that we let Mark loose on the Patreon.
I just imagine, like, if this is a cartoon and, like, they did that, it's like, I'm, like, in a cage. And, like, in Patreon, you guys, like, let me out. And I'm just, like, ravaging the room.
You're like the Tasmanian devil of the Infinity Bros podcast.
And then you throw like a neck like a neck collar on me to settle down.
Or like that grasshopper in A Bug's Life when they just like let him loose on all the ants. Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
he's the Emil Blonsky just sitting in his little cell,
just waiting.
I'm totally rehabbed.
Do not cross the O line. He's writing haikus for everyone. Yeah,
I would love to hear a haiku from Mark. Next podcast.
Let's dive into She-Hulk. I don't think anybody came here to hear our old reviews. If you have not heard our podcast before and this is your first time, you can go check out our episode 1 review of She-Hulk. It's in the link in the show notes. Also, Infinity Bro Robbie and Mark's doing double time 2 days in a row. This is going to be episode 133 because episode 132 is going to be Robbie and Mark discussing the newest episode season premiere of House of Dragons, it's called. Am I correct on that?
House of the Dragon.
House of Dragon, the newest installment in the Game of Thrones series. So you're not going to want to miss that if you're a Game of Thrones fan. It's great content. Make sure you check that out as well. Before we dive into anything, though, we want to make sure you're familiar with our rating system and how we rate things on this podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and put that bumper right here.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
Isaac, before we talk about the spoilers, episode 1, just broad strokes, real quick. Like, what was your rating and like quick thoughts of episode 1?
I would give episode 1 a 5 out of 6, basically kind of along the same lines that you did with your guys' review. Great episode, great premiere. I think there was maybe a few little question marks with CGI, but definitely improved from the first trailer that we saw. So I think they worked on that, did a little better job. Still, there's this, with even this and episode 2, there's still this weird uncanny valley, like kind of oddness going on with Jennifer Walters. And it's probably just the way it is. So I'm going to get over that. It is what it is. But yeah, it was a solid premiere. Made me really intrigued for the rest of the show. So 5 out of 6.
Yeah, Mark gave it a 5.1, Mark.
Robbie gave it a 5.2. Mark gave it a
Mark, you gave it a 5.1?
I think I gave it just a
6.9?
5 out of 6.
Was it a
Because
5?
I gave it a 4.8.
9 or something like that.
4.9. Yeah, I'd 4.9, 4.8.
Because remember, we both gave our ratings, and then Robbie's like, "How could you like talk so bad
and then he
about
gave
it?"
the same rating.
5.2.
Yeah, he's like within a couple decimal points, and he thinks he's the top dog. That's typical Robbie. Yeah, totally classic.
Robbie always thinks he's the top dog. So
yeah, and he is woof woof, right? Woof woof.
Yeah. Bow wow.
Someone in our Discord was like, "How do you like?" We apparently crapped on it the whole episode. I was like, "Did we? Was that the vibe?"
Oh,
that
we did.
gave up?
No, I
did.
agree. Actually, I think we did crap on it. I think we just.
All right. I think we had harsh criticisms, probably very light stuff, but yeah. It's
Well, and I think that's what our
about.
show has been pretty critical about these Disney Plus shows. I don't know. Like I was listening to a podcast the other day that was saying like, "Oh, I loved Miss Marvel," and I'm just sitting there like,
pathetic. Like that's what I meant. Like you're that meme. You're the meme of James Franco looking down at Tobey Maguire in
yeah, that's what I do every time someone rates Miss Marvel or WandaVision so high.
Anytime anybody even mentions
Pathetic.
WandaVision.
No, I'm like that TikTok with the cat on the stairs in the dark.
yeah, that one.
We're going to go ahead and spoil this episode. So if you have not seen it yet, this is your final warning. This is your spoiler warning.
This is
Prepare yourself.
an Infinity Bros
Prepare yourself.
spoiler warning.
She-Hulk. Talked about it last week. Tatiana Maslany plays Jennifer Walters. Getting Mark Ruffalo back as Bruce Banner. He was in this episode again, which is pretty cool. We get the premiere of Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky. And then Ginger Gonzaga is playing Nikki Ramos, as the best friend. And then we got introduced to the family, which was pretty cool as well. Mark Lynn Baker playing the dad. I'm trying to find the mom. The mom's not listed on my list. We'll find her later. Oh, I'm sorry. Tess Melise Kincaid played Elaine Walters as well. So, Mark, let's go ahead and start with you. What is your rating of episode 2 titled Superhuman Law of She-Hulk?
I loved this episode a lot more than I did the first one because I got over my the way she looks when she turns into She-Hulk. But I'm giving this a 5.8 out of 6. I had so much fun watching this episode. I really loved what they showed us and kind of like, we finally got into like, okay, she is at this new job as a lawyer because she couldn't find another job and now has to be the defense for Abomination. And then we get a little insight on where, Bruce Banner, Smart Hulk is or going. And then it leaves us with a cliffhanger. And, I wanted more. So maybe that, that 0.2 that we're missing it's a little short, but I can't, Disney Plus owes us nothing. So I'm just thankful we got 30 minutes.
You're preparing for what I'm about to say. You're totally like laying down the framework before I say something. Go ahead. All right, Isaac, I think you're going to have the same criticism. So I'm going to go next. You're going to have similar criticisms on one thing I know, because we both talked about this not during Patreon, but pre-show offline. Yeah, I'm actually, Mark, I'm with you on the rating. You and I are pretty much aligned. I'm 5.5 as well. So I said this last week. This show, what it has going for it is all this cameo and all this talk about everything going on in the MCU. So when Tatiana Maslany is sitting at dinner with her family that she clearly doesn't want to be at, that I felt totally encompasses getting together with a family. Like, I felt that scene in my bones. I loved that scene. It was so perfect. And you guys know my dad and my parents, really loving, great, supportive people.
Very positive people.
Very positive people, incredibly obnoxious people as well at times. And this is how I felt. I really connected with her on that so much. And but I love how they're talking about Hawkeye at that. And then like Emil Blonsky's in it, and he's way different than 8 years ago. And I think that's going to be a criticism of this show. And I was like, no, he's changed in 8 years. Everybody's changed in this universe. I can buy that. And I just think this show has a lot of potential to explore the corners of the MCU that don't get their moment in the sun in the movies and on the TV shows. And I'm really excited about it. So yeah, I'm with you, Mark. This is a way better episode than episode 1. Personally, I think I'm kind of shocked that Marvel didn't put them together released, because I would have watched this and been like, this is way better than episode 1.
Like what they did with the WandaVision with episodes 1 and 2, just right.
Yeah, I think they're still trying to figure out how to do this release thing. And I think that would have helped, like, with the shortness of the episode, because that's my main criticism. My only 2 criticisms of this show right now are, one, the CGI continues to be an issue. It's not as big of an issue to me as other people. It really only knocks it like a little bit.
And that's the whole thing. Like, I don't feel like it's that bad. Like, it's not, I don't know.
No, it's not biblically bad, but it's like, it is jarring.
Doctor Strange Third Eye bad.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's not that, but it's close. But here's kind of where I'm with Isaac, and this is the rant I'm going to say. You can't tell me you can't give me 4 more minutes of character development. Like, you can't tell me there's not one more scene talking with Nikki about the consequences of taking this case.
Do you think there's a discussion? I'm sure that has to be said, like, hey, Mr. Feige, should we have more time? Or does that dilute the whole story? Like, do we actually need that? Would it actually better the story? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Or would people now criticize and be like, why do we have this 4 minutes of them just talking? We don't need that. Like, I just feel like that would be the new thing.
But from a storytelling perspective right now, Mark, a lot of her key decisions are based off of Bruce. Now, he's gone at the end of this episode, and I would assume he's gone for the rest of the series.
And maybe we get that later in the series. Well, I think that was kind of...
But the point I'm making is we're already 2 episodes of a 9-episode season in. That's just tough for me. Again, it's not a huge knock yet. It could be a huge knock if we get to episode 5 and we keep having this issue. But the timing thing, and this is a bigger issue. I don't think this is just She-Hulk. I think we could have gotten another 4-minute scene. It was the beats were great, but I really wanted her to talk more and wrestle with this. And the only thing that is bothering me now with Tatiana Maslany's Walter's character is I like her sass. I like it. I think it works for the character. If you're going to say quotes like in episode 1, I was right and Bruce was wrong, you got to back it up more with the actions. And there are just moments that feel like Walters is getting things more easily than a character should. And I know that's a big criticism a lot of people have of episode 1. Mark, you and I talked about that last episode. Do we think she's a Mary Sue? I don't think she's a Mary Sue. I do think this is a threat, though, for Marvel if they don't write this correctly. And I need her to wrestle with something as a character. That's really kind of what I'm asking for from this show. Is it the fact that is she going to rage Hulk out? Is there going to be a moment where she loses her marbles and she actually can't control this? Is it this case, and maybe we found out our answer at the end of the episode, this case is going to turn her ethics and life upside down within her family? That's just the only tension I feel. I'm giving it a 5.5, though, because this specific episode is so much fun. I was very long-winded, Isaac. I'll let you take it. Go ahead. We can talk more about the rest of it.
I'm like right along with you guys as well here. I give it a 5.5 for basically the same reasons you guys have mentioned already. I do want to touch on the CGI point because I want to I'm kind of on your side, Mark. I don't think the CGI is that bad, but when we have CGI now that is so good, it's still noticeable. is what it comes down to for me. Like, I noticed that the CGI is not as good as other movies that I've watched. If I watched this 10 years ago, I absolutely would not notice that, because, it just, like, back then it was just a different world. But yeah, I think it's something, and it probably comes down to, it's a TV show and they're not putting the budget into these TV shows that they would a giant production like movie. And that's okay. And that's okay. That's
a green person look normal. Like, it's not going to look normal no matter how much money.
That's the other thing I've been saying from the first trailer, that there is this weird uncanny valley effect that even if the CGI was perfect, it still would look weird, because she's just a giant green woman, and it's hard to, because we don't have nothing to really compare it to. Totally. So it looks just odd. So I think there's an aspect of that, which is why I'm not knocking it that much. But there are some weird animations with, like, her hands specifically. Every once in a while I notice, like, her hands doing something weird or like interacting with something, and it just looks funky. So that's one knock I have on it. I'm not going to dwell on that, because again, I don't think it's bad enough to be like, this is horrendous and Marvel should redo everything. But yeah, the other thing was, I got to the end of this episode and I was like, that's it? This was like, I thought it was like a 20-minute episode, and I think the runtime,
huge bummer, Isaac. Huge bummer.
Right. I think the official runtime of the actual episode was, you were saying, like 22 minutes. So
that's
it's like
ridiculous.
Yeah, just disappointing is really what it comes down to. I was like, man, like, it was so good. It was a great episode. And here's the thing, though, even with that short runtime, they accomplished what they meant to without rushing it. And I think that's a point to what you were saying, Mark, is that, like, did we need more in this episode? I'm not sure, but I would have loved more, because I got to the end of this episode and I was like, wow, I feel like I got cheated a little bit, because I wanted to watch at least a 30-minute episode. I mean, they've been running like 30 to 35 minutes with most of these Disney Plus shows. So I was just like, oh man, it just felt so short. And I just wanted more, because that episode was so stinking good.
Did they say, like, this was going to be like 22-minute runtime? Wasn't that what they promised us?
They have said that this was going to be a 30, and they use the terminology Ally McBeal. There are quotes that said 30-minute Ally McBeal, 30-minute lawyer comedies.
Right. And I think that's to their credit. I think if that's what they're going for, they're going to do a great job. And it is making this feel more episodic, which we haven't gotten in a Marvel Disney Plus show at all. Like, if you crammed all of these together, they're like 4-hour movies, right? Like, that's what it is. The episodic nature making it feel like a TV show actually feels kind of nice. So I'm with that.
Isaac, I'm glad you said that, because that's the reason it's not knocking the score for me. Is I felt cheated. I agree. I'm not going like the route of like, it really made me hooked, so that's why it's a good thing. No. It needs to be longer. I hope, again, I said this last week, I hope Marvel can figure this out long term. Make it just 10 minutes longer. That's it. It doesn't need to be this huge long time. Just 10 minutes more. I hope they can figure that out.
Make a comment today about talking about episodics. Like, it's so short. Like, they should just release it all together if they're going to have episodes this short. Like, why do I have to wait every week for a short episode? And someone replied, like, that's standard television. And they're like, well, that's not the day we live anymore. It's like, you think everyone does that? It was Netflix who does that. No one else really does that anymore. Netflix is the only company that dumps all their episodes at once.
When I first heard it, Mark, that was what I thought. I was like, then just dump it all together. But you're absolutely right. Like, this is standard television. That's what they're doing, and it's keeping us in it.
And they're on a streaming app where it's a monthly subscription. So if you do 9 weeks, you have to subscribe to probably 2.5 or 3 months worth of Disney Plus to watch the whole thing.
Right. And now it's coming back and biting Netflix in the butt, because they're realizing, crap, we dump all this stuff, people binge it in 2 days, and then they just cancel their subscription. And they've had, like, I don't know what it is, millions of lost subscriptions over the past like couple of year or whatever it's been.
And their model was like, we'll just put out so much content that you'll just keep your subscription. And that's not really the case. So
yeah, well, because there's so much content, and like most of it is mid to low tier content. So like, nobody's keeping their Netflix subscription for, this like rom-com that it feels like a Hallmark show. Like maybe maybe there's one or two people out there that are keeping it for that, but generally it's not capturing everybody that Netflix thought they would. So I think, and then they did the thing with Stranger Things where they released half of the volume or half of the show on one date and then waited another like month and a half to release the second half. Like
to the beginning of the next month.
Right. They're experimenting and starting to do things this way because they know that that's
and
hurting
they've done
them.
a few shows in the past where they released it on a weekly basis, but not a lot.
Right.
Look, I get it. You're lazy, and coffee from the grocery store is just as good as ordering from somewhere like Mini World's Tavern, right? Wrong! That's dumb, and you should feel so dumb for thinking that. Does your local grocery store donate a portion of their proceeds to charity? Actually, if they do that, that is kind of awesome. But we guarantee that Mini World's Tavern does that. Besides, it's not like your grocery store provides an amazing monthly blend with added RPG-themed bonuses. That's a limited edition Mini World's Tavern exclusive, baby. They are the online coffee brand that's perfect for game night. Guys, I should know. Before every podcast and every time I go live on Twitch, I fill an entire bathtub full of Great Old One, and I do my best Lord Harkonnen impression. Guys, grab a bag for yourself right now. Go to www.miniworldstavern.com/theinfinitybros, all one word. And guess what? You're going to save yourself 10% at checkout.
So in the aftermath of Titania's defeat, Jennifer Walters gains a reputation as the new superhero dubbed She-Hulk. So an interesting piece of trivia on this is the scene with the gentleman speaking to the reporter was a pretty much side-by-side similar scene to the Incredible Hulk when the Hulk was revealed to the public. And there's this like guy who's like, yeah, it was some kind of Hulk, which I thought was really cool. I saw like an edit of that where it just lined up. It's pretty much beat for beat the same style of discussion. There's a funny thing on the phone we'll talk about in a bit. There's also a couple things at the end of the episode I want to talk about that are very, very interesting Easter eggs. So we're just going to go through the rest of this episode. Just a heads up too. I'm sorry for pausing, but if there's certain Easter eggs we're going to save for the end, Mark, that the one you shared, I want to save that for the end. So she's fired. She's immediately fired. So the title changes for attorney for hire, which I thought was really clever and cool. And she's going from place to place to place. And after several failed attempts, she finally ends up getting work with Holden Holloway at GLK&H, which is the firm she works for in the comics initially. But the catch that she has to do is that she has to be the She-Hulk with this. What did you think of this wrinkle in the story for her as a character?
I thought it was great because, and I was like fully expecting that when he said, I mean, we've seen previews. Like I think you guys mentioned, they've showed a lot of this show that I'm hoping is in the very early episodes. But we saw a clip before that said that he wanted her to be the head of the superhuman law division. And we already kind of knew that. And basically from the moment that he stepped in the bar and wanted to hire her, I was like, oh yeah, they're going to make sure that she's She-Hulk as the, attorney. So I expected it, but it didn't make it any worse. I thought it was a great bit because she's going through all this, like getting not hired by all these other law firms because of that reason. So it just made sense that it was like, all right, well, this is it for you. You got to choose to be an attorney as She-Hulk or just not be an attorney anymore, apparently, because she was Googling other jobs on the couch with her associate there.
Got a swaggy corner office. So, I mean,
True,
there's that.
exactly.
She probably is
Perks.
getting 6 figures because her paralegal friend is like, you can afford this stuff now. So,
yeah, it was interesting. They're really leaning into this narrative of, hey, this is the perspective of being a woman in the workplace. And you see more rhetoric coming from her of like, I don't feel like I earned this. She has a little bit of imposter syndrome coming into this role, which I thought that was a unique spin on the concept of it. But I love Nikki as a paralegal going like, why are you complaining? It's this like two-headed sword a little bit. It felt like it was a direct response kind of to last week's feedback of Jennifer Walters fighting with Bruce and being like, you don't understand, I get catcalled. And then a lot of people on the internet were grouchy because they were saying, Well, Bruce Banner's been on the run for over a decade plus. You need to maybe cut that guy a little bit of slack. And Mark, you and I talked about this last week. We didn't think it was that egregious. We felt like it made sense in the plot. And I think they'll keep leaning into that narrative, and I don't have a problem with that narrative. I'm glad that there's characters around her to challenge that narrative. That's all I ask. And I think that's really good growth for her to see. I ranted about the home visit for her meeting her parents and her aunt and uncle and her brother who gets a job at Best Buy as a manager. What did you think of that, Mark?
Well, I wanted to come back before I touch on that. The guy who came into the office like as a welcoming basket named Pug had a drawing to like the nicest or safest bathroom.
Nice,
I thought that was
the best poop bathroom.
There you go. And I was like, is this going to come back up? What was the point of telling us? Like, did you want another 4 minutes there, Max, where they talked and went to that bathroom? And like,
that's the 4-minute scene I
where
like,
he,
Mark.
where he gives you a tour of the bathroom. Yeah, definitely.
But coming back to like her going to the dinner with her family, very much like I can get that vibe you're saying where clearly like they didn't want, like there was a discussion before she showed up or like, hey, we're not going to talk about She-Hulk or like anything, but right away into like, hey, do you know Hawkeye? It's like literally she just came out as a green Hulk, She-Hulk, and she just happens to know
automatically
Hawkeye.
knows everybody. Yeah, for real.
And then like the brother being like, yeah, I got it. I'm a manager at Best Buy. To like there's obvious competition between the siblings. So
as she's a literal superhero.
Yeah,
just wild.
I felt it in my bones, guys. I'm telling you, that really was like about as well done of an awkward family dinner as you can get. And just the look on her face.
Have you had dinners like that, Max, where you had to compete with your sibling?
No, Austin, it's a little more my parents kind of do it. My sister and I don't do it.
They pit you against each other.
They compare. They don't mean to compare. It's similar to the scene. Like you kind of nailed it. It's like
I think they're trying to be positive though. That's all they're trying.
Yeah, I think that's how my parent. That's in my family. That is the same kind of vibe. There is support, and that's what I liked about these parents was in a lot of these Marvel shows, you're seeing just a parent sucks or there's like a bad reputation. There's a bad relationship with a parent. I liked seeing what appears at least to be a healthy family. Where it's like, hey, you can come back home to us. I really, really like that.
Didn't they make a comment about that? Like, why are most like about adult orphans being superheroes?
yeah, for some reason.
To me, that really adds depth to the character. I think some people might criticize that. I disagree. I would say this is a character that is grounded, and this is what gives her confidence. She has a good family life. Yeah, she's got a brother who's got a Best Buy job, but she can go home and have dinner with her family whenever she wants. There's a lot of people who would kill to have that.
Just to speak to that, the orphan comment too, I think that goes a little bit to her meta, kind of breaking the fourth wall narrative too, that like, she probably knows that, she's in a show and I don't think she was breaking the fourth wall in that moment but I like kind of felt those vibes when she was talking about the orphan. She could potentially be talking about Batman or any other superhero that could be mentioned. So I thought that was kind of a cool meta reference.
Do you think we'll get to, now on that topic, do we get to a point where she totally acknowledges that she can break the fourth wall? Or is she more like Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell, where it just happens once in a while?
It'd be great to see her and Deadpool have a little fourth wall off. That would just be awesome. Great. I hope Marvel plays with that. I think they will. I hope they will. Just to talk about the post-credit scene too, I thought that was really funny how she was helping her out around the house. And like, again, I'm in a stage of life where I really connected with this scene, guys. I got to tell you, I'm in the stage of life where I'm carrying crap around for my parents all the time. I loved it. I ate it up. I ate the whole thing up. That was just so perfect. Spot on. Let's talk about this Emil Blonsky scene. So like I referenced this in my review. He's a completely different guy, namaste, doing the whole haiku bit.
The only one that's a completely different person is Bruce Banner. Let's get real.
Another nice meta comment there.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously it really kind of does connect with the phone call that happens afterwards where she's ranting at Bruce and Bruce is trying to say like, don't worry about it. It's water under the bridge. We figured it out. which to me says a lot about Bruce's character too, of like just his ability to forgive. I loved that too. It was a very, very sweet and touching thing. And I think he also has this perspective of like, I'm going off planet. I've got other crap to do. I can't care about this person I fought 10 years ago. What did you guys think of Emil Blonsky? Are you cool with the direction they're going with Tim Roth's character, Isaac?
Honestly, yeah. Like I was really curious to see how they're going to play this off. And I thought it totally fit. Like granted, I have not gone back and watched The Incredible Hulk for a really, really long time, but basically Emil Blonsky in that is like a hit guy that the government does this experiment on so he can compete with the Hulk. And he just kind of goes off. Right. They gave him the super soldier serum and he kind of goes off the rails and, like they said, destroys Harlem. But like after he's still obviously got the powers. He's Abomination. But like after all that is cooled off, like I feel like that makes sense that it's been years. Like why should he be super rageful at the Hulk anymore? Like that movie, from what I remember from it, it seemed like a very like in the moment, like revenge, like, oh man, I got to be better than you type of thing. And like he's been in jail for 8 years. Like he doesn't like have to compete necessarily anymore. So like I thought that totally made sense.
So Mark, before I want to ask you a question before you say that too, to add on to what you're going to say, Mark.
Okay.
Do you think that this defeats everything that's happened in the context of the Incredible Hulk? Or do you think this adds layers to it to people to go rewatch?
I think this adds layers because, like, what I want to say, where I think it does add layers, where he references it. He was basically a military person on loan to the U.S. government to go hunt Bruce Banner and Hulk. And under the direction of Director Ross or whatever, General Ross, to go get Hulk and kill him or bring him in or whatever. And in their efforts are like, hey, here's some serum. Let's give it to you so you can combat him equally without any probably recourse of what might happen to this guy. Just like the Hulk goes crazy, this guy might have no control over that. They probably didn't care. So at the end of the day, yeah, he probably should be in a rehabilitation case where he can get out because it's like, hey, who I am now probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't take this contract with the U.S. government. So there's a little look at that. You know, I think it gives total more layers to the Incredible Hulk. And I love that they're not just like overshadowing the Incredible Hulk. They're buying into that storyline with this.
Yeah, they're shooing it off. They're doing what they did with Iron Man 2. They're saying, look, this is a change. We're acknowledging it. Here's the acknowledgement. Here's the funny joke. But then, and here's the big tension with the show is a lot of people feel like Hulk got nerfed. And Robbie did say last week, he did get nerfed. And this just kind of feeds more into that theory a little bit. It's like, okay, now Abomination's all about Namaste. It's like, I think to some people, Mark, this is going to be egregious.
Hulk isn't really nerfed per se. Hulk turned into smart Hulk. So like when people compare his size to Incredible Hulk, it's well, Bruce Banner decided to take both parts of Hulk. So he's not going to be as big as he once was because he had probably control of that. And my theory is it's probably going to come out and he's going to be Rage Hulk. It's probably going to be to a point where Hulk becomes a villain, if maybe. Or Hulk takes over again. Right.
So. If they go the World War Hulk route, I mean, he's got to be the villain.
We talked about it last week. So. We're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, that's when the people who are like, oh, they nerfed him. It's like, there's going to be a big payoff. I'm betting money there's going to be a big payoff where Hulk is back. Because, like, when people, like, compared, like, oh, how does he get, like, run over by the car in the first episode, but he can, like, punch a giant, like, space, like, I forget what they're called, the Shintari, like, lizard thing. Where it's like, well, Hulk, like actual Hulk is in control of that body versus it's Bruce Banner in control of this body. So he's not going to have the same.
And he doesn't want to hurt his Jeep or his,
and that too,
or his
and
cousin.
All that. Yeah.
He doesn't want to break his Jeep.
If real Hulk was fighting She-Hulk, totally different stories happening. So
and that's going to happen. It's going to happen. And when that happens, She-Hulk will say, we're in trouble. That will be the moment that everybody in the MCU goes, okay, we're in trouble.
And they got to get Abomination out of prison to be part of the Thunderbolts. So,
Well, we're going to talk about that in a sec. Because he did reference 7 pen pals. Do you think that was the Thunderbolts, Mark?
It's got to be.
Because here's where the timeline gets wonky. I'm gonna just talk about the rest of the episode, and then we'll talk about.
But we're assuming, are we assuming those other people?
Well, one sec. Because there's a timeline issue here too that I want to talk about with you, but potential. I don't think it's a timeline issue, but people are noticing it. So Blonsky pitches the case to her. She spends like 10 seconds because the show is 20 minutes, wrestling with this. Talks to Bruce. It's not really a conversation. It's her talking over him.
In all fairness, it was later in the day, so clearly a few hours went by, Max.
It's fine. He's in space, so it's not really day or night for him. That's neither here nor there. So he's going off into space.
In a different colored ship, too.
In a different colored ship. I was just going to say, Mark, love it.
We're two peas in one pod. We're destined to do this forever, Max.
She doesn't know he's traveling, and then the phone cuts off. She accepts the case. She checks out the news, and we get this scene from Shang-Chi where he's fighting Wong in I forget the place it's called. Forgive me. We all know the scene. I would honestly, I'd say it's an iconic scene in the MCU. Here's the timeline issue here, Mark, is that if Blonsky went back after that Shang-Chi fight.
Okay.
Why is he out of the prison?
What do you mean?
Because that is this episode, it says he's out of the prison, he escaped. So does this mean Wong took him somewhere? Does this mean he's with the Thunderbolts now?
But are they saying he escaped because that's the video they got?
Right.
Or are we
He's
saying,
not there anymore. He's not there anymore.
No, hang on. It says he escaped, so they probably just had the video. So do we actually know that he's out of the prison? Or was this video got out so people are assuming he's out of the prison because they only have the video of him? Because if you remember that video, he comes back into the prison.
So what you're saying is we don't have definitive proof that he's not out of his cell.
Correct.
And I actually thought of this when I watched this episode, because in that news clip, they say it appears that he has broken out. So they have no other news about this besides that video of him fighting in the underground fight club or whatever. So they're speculating that he broke out of prison because he's in this video somewhere else. But yeah, like Mark said, I mean, Wong brings him back to the prison in
And then
Shang-Chi,
two questions about that. Do they not have cameras of the prison, or is someone also in the workings of the prison to be like, hey, here's this clip where will there
or
be
Wong
will we get
put
shown
a spell on
we get that where
cameras.
Wong's
the forgetful spell. I mean, literally
that's something, or something that where you can put an image, it looks like he's
the Sorcerer Supreme. He's not. He's the worst Sorcerer Supreme in the history of Sorcerer Supremes.
Or he's a skrull.
He might be. Mark, honestly, if he was a skrull, I would feel redeemed about how he was treated in Multiverse of Madness. Because that's the question too. Mark, here's a Wong question for you.
Well, hang on, I got one more. We can I just got talking to Skrulls. We can almost confirm Nick Fury has been a Skrull since Age of Ultron. That
100% because of the cut. Yeah, the diagonal cut. Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question then. Do you think they're going to kill Wong at the end of this thing to he's going to be the Coulson? Or do you think it's going to be that he's a Skrull to really, really just set this? Because Wong is in everything.
I hope it then I kind of hope it's a Skrull to kind of tie into Secret War, Secret Invasion. And then what happened to the real Wong?
Yeah, and how long has he been gone? That would be wild for Doctor Strange.
Because I'm assuming Wong, and then for how do they mask it so Doctor Strange can't tell? It's
here's the other part is if he got the Sorcerer Supreme as a Skrull, that's a huge no for that whole section of this universe. Yeah. That's a huge problem.
And that would be the other question is Wong must have had, must have been, a sorcerer at some point where the Skrull takes over.
Dude,
if that's the case.
I think we've kind of made a personal. I think I've come to a conclusion that this explains why Wong was such a piece of trash in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
against Wanda.
So I'm thinking maybe something during the blip happened where.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too.
Where maybe Wong's in on it too, where it's you gotta take this over because maybe actual Wong's dealing with something even more serious.
Sure. Oh man, good theory.
So here's another question. This is I don't know. We've probably been speculating this for a while too, but Wong obviously takes Abomination to the Underground Fight Club. Abomination already has been confirmed to be one of the Thunderbolts. So is Wong somehow connected to the Thunderbolts? Is he helping them get set up? Like, what does Wong have to do with Abomination being...
I hope that's all explained in episode 3, right?
Well, yeah,
like,
you would hope so.
do you think she goes to New York and like interviews Wong?
I mean, I would assume she's going to be talking to Blonsky about this for sure. But I don't know. It like that begs the question is he still in prison? Is he in whatever, safe place that Wong has for him? If he is still in prison, Jen's going to be talking to him about it for sure.
I think for this first season, I can't see them like flipping the script like where she goes to like different cases, like almost every other episode or something like that. I almost feel like this is going to be the case that she's on the whole season.
I think this is going to major one, but
so that's why I think
definitely have a couple
he's
smaller
be in
ones
the prison
in there.
Yeah. And then we gotta get Daredevil involved somehow too, right? Like,
yeah,
we got 7 more episodes.
Let's talk about these Easter eggs I referenced earlier. So, Mark, the Sakaran ship, you nailed one of them. It's a different colored ship. Mm-hmm. We went back and forth about Scar last week. You can hear our thoughts on that. We're not going to rehash that. Have your theories changed? Is there anybody you'd add to that list?
No.
Of like who he could be working with or for, or like what Hulk is doing. I mean, to me, this feels like confirmation of World War Hulk. This feels like confirmation to me.
But like to me, if it was World War Hulk, he's being abducted, or like, are we going to find that someone that Hulk cares about? Like, who would he care about at this point enough to like go try to save them?
He looked pretty comfortable in that ship, and that desk that he was sitting at looked like it could have been his.
Right. So so what is he going? Where is he going? Or is it something like Captain Marvel has, or maybe this ties into Miss Marvel where Captain Marvel's like, hey, we need to go save this girl, or I don't know. There's so many weeds. I'm getting so like my brain could explode.
Mark's getting lost. He's getting lost in the weeds, guys.
Don't help me. Throw me a raft.
Guys, what if Bruce Banner is a Hulk? I mean, what if
Bruce Banner's a Hulk?
Oh my gosh. Mind-blowing revelation. What?
What if he is a skrull? Because this would explain why he's nerfed. This would explain why he didn't fight at all in Endgame. It doesn't necessarily explain how he could snap his fingers, but they could maybe science mumbo jumbo it. It would also explain why he's happy.
I feel like if he
he became a Skrull after all this, after Endgame.
If he was a Skrull, it would have to be afterwards, because I feel like if he was a Skrull and he did the snap, he would have.
Yeah, you're right. You can't take that away as a storytelling thing either.
Right,
you're absolutely right.
And then with like he makes that like wrist bracelet device to make him bruise.
Sure.
So I don't know why if he was a Skrull, he goes through all that.
If he was a Skrull, the blood wouldn't have worked in her. You're right.
This is really fun, guys, speculating about who could be Skrulls again. This throws me back to like way back at the beginning of the Infinity Bros podcast when we were speculating that every single person in the MCU was a Skrull.
And then last year they announced that they're going to do Secret Invasion. So like anybody. So we're at a point where anyone could be a Skrull. Like that's literally the world we live in the MCU.
I love it. So yeah, we have no real new theories to add on to that, except some of us think Bruce Banner's Hulk.
No way. I don't believe it.
I don't believe it. I know. Everybody calm down. Tatiana Maslany's Jennifer Walters has on her lock screen a picture of America's ass. Captain America from behind is on there. You can see that.
See, when you said America's ass, not Captain America's ass right away, I just thought of like the country of the United States with like a butt on it. And like, I don't know why my mind went there.
That's never changed, Mark.
So that's where I went.
Maybe, I don't know, that would be a nice like metaphor for that.
Clearly she has some obsession with Captain America.
She does, and I love it. I'm here for it. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Do you think knowing this,
a good bit,
will Old Man Cap show up at all in this series?
No, not in this series, but he is coming back down the line. We've talked about this. He's coming back down the line.
Do you think we're going to get Old Man Cap and they're going to use what they did in Endgame where they accidentally sent time through Ant-Man to make him young?
100%. Yeah.
Picture this. She-Hulk
buckle up, everybody.
Buckle up. She-Hulk season 2. They open up and old man Steve Rogers is getting just publicly dragged through the mud because of all the stuff that they found out he did going back in time. Now, Daredevil wants to prosecute him, and She-Hulk is the defending attorney. Like, that's a comic book storyline. Like, that would be
working for Daddy Feige.
Exactly.
We also get confirmation that the Celestial is in this universe. I've had a theory that the Eternals are not in this universe, but they are. And we get this confirmation on an on a website screen that confirms that there's a giant hand.
Was that somebody's theory that these Eternals weren't in our universe?
Yeah, I've had that theory for a little bit. Because I was like, it also would explain why the movie is so not referenced at all, but it also could explain you could hop multiverses with Star Fox.
See, I go back to this thought when people are like, why wouldn't people be talking about it? Or like, why is it not a big issue? I just go through a little something we all have been through is COVID, where we're just no longer shocked by big things anymore.
No, there's things that are said on the news we never talk about. You're right.
Exactly. So I feel like something like this out in the ocean, there's like, we got blipped like 4 years ago. I could care less. Like, whatever.
There's been crazier things, right?
Yeah, like that's where I think this world is at, where it's like
100%.
Did anyone die? No? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. What's happening tomorrow?
In the middle of it's in the middle of the ocean. Hasn't really affected anybody. Oh, wow. That's weird.
The big reveal that this was news to me right before Mark and I got on. Mark kind of told me this. So there is a line that basically references a man fighting in a bar with metal claws. This appears to be an indication that the X-Men are in this universe in the context of Wolverine. At least Wolverine is in this universe.
Or someone who also uses metal claws, like Elektra. But it said a man. But
maybe, but I mean, like, this feels to me like with what happened with Miss Marvel, that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, like, the character of Wolverine would absolutely be in a bar fight with claws. So they're like that totally makes sense. So yeah, I love that reference. I thought
what an obscure spot to put it in.
Yeah. And they knew people were going to pick that out. Like, I mean,
they know.
That's awesome.
They know. Yeah. That's She-Hulk.
Pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah. Mark, thanks for coming on.
I'm always glad to be a part of this.
Tried to slow down my editing because I got to do 2
then,
episodes
now,
this week.
and forever.
Thank you. Isaac, thank you for coming on and being on today, and I hope you're not a Skrull.
I hope not either.
That's something a Skrull would say.
How many of the Infinity Bros are Skrulls, do you think?
Zane for sure.
Oh, Zane's definitely a Skrull. He's not even hiding it. He's been a Skrull this whole time.
Jarrett, Rocky,
Max, Zane, are you sure you're Zane? My name's above my closet. Thank you very much.
Why do you think I have this right here in my room?
It's because I'm the real Zane, I promise. Well, thank you, Infinity Bros Universe. Wherever you listened, however you listened, thanks for making us part of your podcast experience. As we talked about at the top of the show, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can see all the links we talked about in the show notes. And check out episode 2 of She-Hulk right now on Disney+. As always, we'll love you guys 3000. We'll see you later. See ya. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Infinity Bros. Feel free to send listener feedback via email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.